we now bring in Indiana coach Curt Cignetti, former West Virginia quarterback, head coach at IUP, Elon and James Madison, now Indiana. Coach, you famously said one of your best bars ever. I win. Google me. For our listeners, we will save you that Google. You went 62-26 at your first two stops. JMU, you were an insane 52-9 in 5 seasons. I think I've long said that a massive market inefficiency in college football is everybody wants the hotshot coordinator or the guy who won her for 1 or 2 years at a G5, and coaches with long histories of winning at lower levels get overlooked. Do you kind of see the same thing, and why do you think that is?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I was 24 years as an assistant, what would be considered P5 now. Back at Rice, back when they were in the Southwest Conference. And there's a lot of good coaches at every level, I can tell you that. There's high school coaches that could probably coach circles around some NFL guys. It's just the way it is. But there's guys like Brian Kelly, Lance Leopold, Kalen DeBoer, Willie Fritz, guys that have worked their way up, that had to polish the staff table and take the garbage out over Thanksgiving break when they were playing in the playoffs. And there's probably some value in that. And then working up every level and continuing to be successful, which adds to your belief and confidence as a coach that, you can win at any level. And when I took this job, and it was a very quick process, I felt like I had done this before 2 or 3 times already. So
yeah,
why not do it again? And I felt great about the commitment from the university to get this thing humming. And so there's a lot of value in that, probably.
When you talk about doing this, a couple times before and starting somewhere new, you've mentioned kind of your blueprint. What does that blueprint look like? What are the most important things that it takes to put your imprint on a program and get things rolling early on?
Yeah. Well, probably, to simplify things, when you take over an organization, the first thing you got to do is change the way people think. Change the way people think on the inside and outside of your program. Set an expectation level, have a standard of how you do things, high standards, consistency, day in, day out, total buy-in to the process of improving every day, accountability throughout the organization. But it's all about people, the guys you hire and the people you recruit, and then creating an environment where they can thrive and kind of implementing the blueprint and working the plan on a daily basis and improving. But you got to get inside their heads at some point before you kick it off in that first game, right? And get them believing. But that comes a little bit later. So like in our particular situation, I got here day one and we had 10 offensive starters in the transfer portal. I didn't really know beforehand, and half our defense. It ended up being a blessing because we were able to recruit a lot of new faces, brought 22 transfers in December that were 2 and 3 year starters everywhere at the places they had been and been productive year in, year out, which, I put a high premium on production over potential. I think there's an intangible factor there with a guy that year in, year out, day in, day out, game in, game out, he's available, he's playing, he's producing. There's this stick-to-itiveness. There's the ability to overcome obstacles, handle success, handle failure, be a good teammate, that kind of thing. So, I really saw the culture change. I felt in my heart like we had flipped the roster in December, the sign date, the 18th or 21st, whenever that was. And then you could see it start to kick in January. Now, the influx of JMU guys really helped that because they had come from a championship program. They knew the program, knew how we did things. They could answer questions for the other players. They led by example. I have a lot of JMU guys on my staff, full-time assistants and also quality controls, graduate assistants, other guys that have played for me at other places. So they know what I expect, and they know what every day is going to look like and the things that are important. And so I saw that continue to improve over spring football, summer conditioning, training camp, and it was just a matter of putting it on the field.
Yeah, I think you have 13 rough transfers coming in from JMU. How important or how purposeful, I guess, was that? And how much does, as you mentioned, bringing that nucleus that's that big, who knows the expectations, like I said, obviously has faith in you. They're not looking around saying, do we buy what this guy's selling, and knows what things are supposed to look like. How much does that ease a transition?
Yeah, like I said, I think Indiana made a change on a Sunday, and I was offered the job Wednesday night, 3 days later. So it was a very quick process. I met with the team Thursday at 2. I made a final decision around 12:30 in the afternoon, met with the team at 2. And I truthfully never even entertained the thought that some of these guys would follow. But listening to some comments they've made on TV, rebroadcasts, and interviews, a number of them said as soon as I walked in, said I was leaving, in their minds, they were coming. But once I got here, a couple of men entered the portal, decided not to play in the bowl game, and jumped on board. And, you got to understand that group, they had won 5 championships in 5 years. We recruited those guys out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been with us 3 to 5 years, most of them. Had great relationships with their position coaches and each other. And they kind of had chips on their shoulder because they're wondering, why wasn't I recruited by Virginia Tech out of high school?
Mm-hmm.
They had something to prove. And this was an opportunity to do what they had always dreamed of doing. So it just sort of happened. And we obviously had a need. And, they have been the key to the drill. Now, there's been a lot of other guys that are key to the drill too, obviously, because, all these guys had high character that we brought in. And I just won't recruit, I know what I'm looking for. I made my mistakes when I was younger. This year, I was recruiting coordinator for about 15 years and a coach. And, I made those mistakes early in my career in evaluating and selecting. And the guys that stayed, they had a chip on their shoulder and had something to prove. So it's just a matter of getting it to kind of come together and develop these guys individually and collectively day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. You guys are 6-0 for the first time since 1967. When you're dreaming so big and you have bigger goals, do you take a moment and recognize that, or feel like you've done anything just yet, or do you sort of how do you balance doing things that we haven't seen at Indiana and also the bigger things that you want to accomplish there?
Yeah, well, we're very process driven. We really don't talk about results. Want to get the most out of every day. Have a way of doing things. I think champions are really never satisfied. And part of my job is making sure that we're always humble and hungry. And regardless of the result on Saturday, there's always a lot of things you could have done better that you need to clean up. And you got to have great preparation week in, week out, and have the right mindset ready to play. Because really, the margin for error on Saturdays is very slim. I think a lot of people don't realize how slim it really is. And you got to have that edge going in. So, like I never sat down with the team before the season started and said, our goal is to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I challenged them in certain ways, and this is where we're heading. And this is what we're going to do. And they believed that. And they all had a kind of a chip on their shoulder. But we're more about no self-imposed limitations on what we can accomplish if we do things the right way.
Mm-hmm. You guys brought in Kurtis Rourke, MAC Player of the Year at Ohio, an accomplished player in his own right. But you'd had so much success with Jordan McLeod, obviously, at JMU. How did you kind of juggle that? How did that quarterback situation shake out, when you bring in so many JMU guys, but not the quarterback?
Right. Well, our last 4 quarterbacks at JMU were all Player of the Year in the league on offense. And, one we had inherited, and, he had kind of an up and down junior year, and we do a good job developing quarterbacks. I'm going to get and answer your question here. And then the backup took over, and they all had their skeptics. He was Player of the Year in the conference, but he was a different kind of quarterback. Then we got Todd Centeio from Colorado State, who he had played but didn't have a lot of success. He's kind of a dual guy. Following year, 1 year transfer and Player of the Year in the league. And then Jordan McLeod had played early in his career at South Florida. And, he had a couple nice games, but overall not great total success, and Player of the Year in the league. In Jordan's particular situation, he really was not eligible to go in the portal knowing he'd get an extra year. He was going to have to petition for that.
Mm-hmm.
He'd already transferred twice. And the rule changed right before Christmas. Well, by then we'd sort of moved on. We liked Kurtis Rourke on tape. He knew how to play quarterback, MAC Player of the Year. He reminded me a little bit of Phillip Rivers, who I was with for 4 years at NC State and coached his senior year. Very high football IQ, high touchdown to interception ratio, a lot of touchdown passes, very few interceptions, could get you back to normal down distance when in a jam, athletic enough to run for a first down, get out of the pocket on third down. And really liked his mental makeup, and he could make all the throws. So, he was the guy we kind of targeted, and thankfully he came.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Phillip Rivers. What's your favorite Phillip Rivers story of your time together?
Oh, gosh, I know. Well, we didn't recruit Phillip. We were new staff. Came in with Chuck Amato. This is 2000.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first $1 million staff, where 9 assistant coaches, all their salaries together were a little bit over $1 million. Can you believe that?
Things have changed a little since the last 24 years.
Yeah. So, but he was recruited by Joe Pate and Mike O'Kane's staff. So he was there. He was a mid-year enrollee. So, you do your winter conditioning program back then. Coaches were involved with the players, and after one, Norm Chow was the offense coordinator, and Phillip, had a ball in his hand, was throwing a little bit, and Norm saw his throwing motion release, and he was like, "Oh God, this guy
I said that watching him.
Would never play here, never." But we go out there that first spring, man. That first day of spring ball, bing, 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 bing. He's completing balls all over the field. One thing about Phillip Rivers, couple things. Number one, he processed things so quickly. He saw it before the coaches did. I mean, that ball was out. He saw it. He could just process what was going on. And that release was quick and accurate. But, boy, was he a competitive guy. I mean, he loved football, and he loved the process.
When you think about trying to build culture and build your program, in your previous stops, whether that's as a head coach or as an assistant, what have been the most important things that you've learned along the way that you wanted to take to Indiana and put as a big part of what the culture is going to be in Bloomington?
Yeah, well, my dad was a coach, so I'm son of a coach in the Hall of Fame, even though I never coached for him. But when I went with Coach Saban in his first year at Alabama, I stayed 4 years. I learned a ton about running a program from him. I was taking mental notes, and just highly structured, organized, had a plan for everything. And it really kind of fit my personality. Now, you tweak things to your personality too. But, I think you got to have credibility as a leader, and you got to lead by example, number one. And I put a lot of time into my messaging. I don't talk to the team a lot. I try to make every word count. And I think it resonates, or it has in the past. And, but you got to have a plan, man, and you got to work at plan. I mean, there's no magic wand. But like I said at the beginning, you got to change the way that people think. You got to change the way they think about themselves. Set an expectation level, of vision, where you're going, how you're going to get there. And now you got to put the work in. You got to have the right kind of people. But if you got a plan and you work it every day and you demand the right thing, you get what you demand in coaching. And you stay on track, you're going to improve and get it done. I don't know. Maybe there's something, being a son of a coach, inherent in me. I knew in third grade I wanted to coach. So, probably not a great answer.
How do you change the way people think? Is that, that sounds like a difficult task.
Well, I think everybody wants to be good. Everybody in this game wants to be as good as they can be, right? Players want to be as good as they can be. Coach's job is to make them as good as they can be, so the team can be as good as it can be. And you build a guy up, you get him thinking, Okay. Buy into the team concept now. Buy into the team concept. And you get them all thinking alike, focused on the same thing, eliminating noise and clutter, and having day in, day out focus on the here and now. Because really, tomorrow's a concept, next week's a concept. You're always in the here and now, right? Great focus in the meetings, great focus and energy at practice, a philosophy of how to play the game, one play at a time, 6 seconds a player. Play's got a life and a history of its own, fast, physical, relentless, smart, disciplined, poised, never too high, never too low, not affected by success, not affected by failure, on the next play. Every play's nothing. You play that way and you have high standards in everything you do. You practice with high standards. You're going to play that way. And then when the game's on the line at the end, you're not the one looking at the scoreboard getting tight. You're just out there doing your thing. So, like you just gotta coach the little things. Like, look, guys, how are we going to react when we're up 2 scores during the game? I don't want to see them smiling, relief syndrome on the sideline. Like, I want to see that pedal to the metal, one play at a time, foot on the jugular. The time to relax is at the end of the game. Now, how are you going to react if you're 2 scores down, 3 scores down? Because I've had teams come back from 4 scores down in the second quarter before. Which we haven't been behind yet this year.
Yeah.
But I saw how they reacted last year when they were 2 scores down. But if you have an indomitable will that can't be subdued or denied, and you're resilient, which is overcoming the unexpected, then you're not going to get kind of flustered by any game circumstance.
What when it comes to changing how people think, does that extend to the people in the cheap seats, the people in the donor dinners? How do you do that for people that aren't in the building every day?
In our case, it did, because, and I went out there with some of my comments when I got hired here. It's all on record. And I didn't do that at every place. But, I had to find out if the fan base here was dead or on life support. Because as soon as I got here and stepped foot on campus, I could just tell, that because of the lack of success, historically, a lot of people had kind of given up on football. And so I had to set an expectation level right off the bat with the general public where we're going. And the players heard that and they liked that. Now, you got to have the right kind of guys on your roster too now. They got to be moldable and coachable and goal-oriented and buy into the team concept and, check their ego at the door and all that. Because, when a team's successful, everybody accomplishes more. We're all conference guys, all Americans, draft choices, et cetera, et cetera. But the team's got to be successful, not about how many balls you caught or this or that. So, when you take over a situation that hadn't been successful, you got to push. And sometimes you got to push the administration a little bit. And, when you're talking to the alumni base, you just got to tell them how it's going to be and how it's been done in the past hadn't worked. It's easy to get people fired up with words, right? In the off season, new coach. Okay. Everybody's always hopeful. Very few people really understand how much we do. I'm talking about the team and what goes into this, but you got to put it on the field. But see, that Elon experience really helped me. Because we go in there and they're like 10-45. They're 2-10 the year before, lost to the last place team by 40 points at home their last game. Okay. Everybody thought it was hopeless, futile. I went down there, interviewed, saw what they had facility-wise. I'm like, why can't you get this done? By then, I'd been head coach 6 years. I kind of knew what I was doing. I'd had success. Okay. Well, we go up to Toledo. They win the MAC. We lost, but we played hard, right? We win 8 in a row after that. 8 in a row. Played JMU for what really was a conference championship. Beat JMU up there the next year, which everybody viewed as impossible. But that particular experience, I equated a lot to this one once I got here. Very similar situation. And when you looked at the schedule, okay, because the schedule is what it is, and that's all we had to sell now to these guys in December, these portal guys, was what we've done as a staff, because we've done really good things with quarterbacks, receivers, D linemen, defense in general, winning football games, championships. We had to sell what we'd done, the vision, the blueprint, the plan, where we're going, and then show them the schedule and go down every game. Okay, you see this, see this, see this. Because once you win one, okay, your players believe a little more. They have a little more confidence. Then you win two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Saw it happen firsthand before.
We mentioned your quarterback. You feel like he's getting enough love, or why do you think he's had so much success to this point in the season?
I'm going to dwell on the success because I don't, he's getting a lot of good stuff out there, and he deserves everything he can get. It's really come together. We started fast in the opener, but the last quarter and a half, we didn't play very well. We had some sacks, some penalties behind the chains. Wasn't real pleased with the performance of the offense. Second game, didn't play a very good team, but played real well as a team in all three phases and offensively. Went out to UCLA, and, there you go. You're on national TV, the big arena, right? Rose Bowl and all that good stuff. And he was phenomenal. And, he just has built on every week. And, he's playing with a lot of confidence. He knows what he's doing. He throws a real catchable ball. And we got wideouts that have great ball skills. I mean, they've made some great catches. And he's made some pinpoint throws. And we protected him really well. I think we've only got 3 sacks maybe in the last 4 games. But we're very balanced on offense too. We can run the ball effectively. So, when you can run it and you can throw it, obviously that puts more pressure on the defense. So he's got a nice supporting cast, but he's definitely the key cog in the machine.
Coach, I don't know if you've seen this, but Troy Aikman at that game at the Rose Bowl, you've won him on the Hoosier bandwagon. He's on board, but he was giving a lot of love to somebody named Curt Cignetti. I don't know who that is.
Oh, he's a distant cousin. He steps in and coaches for me on Saturday. I do the work Monday through Friday. Yeah.
How much does that matter? And how much does, we need to build up our relevance as a program, and recruits and portal guys see my face and say, I want to play for that guy. How much does that stuff matter in 2024?
Well, you mean that kind of publicity?
Publicity and just people kind of recognizing your name, your face.
I think it helps a lot. I think positive publicity, because let's face it, these young people nowadays are on their phone all the time, social media. So, the more you win, the more of that you get, right? And it certainly helps. There's no doubt about it. But the key is you got to win.
Coach, before we let you go, I got to ask you. So you've got a very nicknameable name. I love it. We've had the SIGs up in the student section. I love the toughness that your teams play with. And also, you guys are beating the heck out of people. We have come to calling you Cignasty on our show. How do you feel about that nickname? That's my personal favorite. Versus the SIGs up or the Marlboro Man. Do you have any preferences?
I've probably been called that before. I like that. Cignasty. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do that.
That'll
be the next T-shirt. They've been coming out. There must be 5 or 6 different ones right now. People here are over the top, man. They can't contain themselves.
Yeah, it's been cool to see. You guys have been one of our favorite stories in college football this year. Well, thank you, Coach Cignetti. Cignasty, I'm glad that we've gotten it officially signed off on. We may roll with that this year. Thank you for your time. Good luck to you guys. We'll be watching, and it's been fun watching you guys so far this year. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you.